In this video we'll do an introduction to the new custom component in version 11. So let's go ahead now and start by creating a new custom component, and the builder opens up, and the custom component basically lets you write your own Xbasic to define a component. So you can see here it tells you that you need to go to the onInitialRender function in order to define the output of the component. So I'm going to go here to server-side events, then I'm going to go to onInitialRender, and this function needs to set one required property, which is the eHTML, and then one optional property, which is the JavaScript. So I'm going to just go here and do the simplest of possible components. I'm going to just go here and say e.html equals hello, and now if I go into working preview, you can see that my component has emitted the HTML that we defined over there. And if I were to go here and say e.javascript equals alert, when I go to run the component, I see the HTML, and then the JavaScript also runs. So clearly this is not a very useful component at this point, but I'm going to show you in this video the very basics of how the custom component can be used and how you can leverage it in your own applications. So the next thing that I'd like to do is go here and define an argument for this component. And arguments are really the key point in custom components, because in general, when you place a custom component in a web application, you're going to have some external value that you'd like to pass into the component. So I'm going to go here and go to the component properties now, and I'm going to go to arguments, and I'm going to define a new argument. So let's go here and I'll just say here what name. I'll make it a character value, and I'll just give it a default value of Fred. So now I'm going to go back to my server-side events, and what I'd like to do now is, instead of just saying hello, I'd like to say hello, and I'd like to reference the value of the argument that was defined. So I'm going to just paste in some code here, and then I'll explain it. So inside the E object that is passed into the onInitialRender, we have e.arguments XML, which is the XML version of the arguments that were defined in properties. And so I'm just creating a local arguments object here, so dim args as SQL arguments, and I'm setting this args XML property to the XML of the arguments that were passed in. Then I'm getting the argument number for what name, which is the argument that we defined, and now I'm reading out its value. So you can see here, if I go into debug and then run this over here, we look inside the E object that was passed in, we can see that there is arguments.xml is passed in over there, and we're just using the functionality of the arguments object to reconstitute an arguments object by setting its XML property and then finding out which argument number is what name, and then reading its value. So here I'm going to go here and say plus name, and then go over there and then save this as demo custom component, and then if I run it here, we can see it says hello Fred. So at this point we have a very simple custom component that takes one argument. And now let's go and take this component and put it into a grid component, so that when I click a button in the grid, we open the custom component. So I'm going to go here and create a new grid component, and I'll just base it on a simple DBF. Go here and choose, say, the customer table, and I'll choose some fields there, and then go to go back to fields, and let's put in a button, and I'm going to pause here and pick it up in the next video.